Hi there, I'm Brian Little and you're watching the Villa View, and it's a fantastic thing to do, so continue do it, and up the Villa lads, all the best.
Hello and welcome back to the Villa View. A few weeks ago the Villa Trust invited us along to their AGM where they actually held a Q&A with Villa CEO Keith Wyness. You'll probably have seen our video where we spoke to some of the Trust members after the AGM. If you haven't, check it out here. But now I wasn't there, so I'm just going to gauge Matt's feelings on how he thought the AGM went and what he thought of Keith Wyness. You met Keith Wyness personally that night. What did you make of his character and how he was with you?
I thought, genuinely speaking, he was brilliant. Obviously last year I wasn't there, and I know how it was with Steve Hollis because he referred to them as customers, but straight away, Keith Wyness is a football man. He talks a football game. He's got a footballing brain. I think that's what matters most. He knows his business, but on a football level, he can talk so much sense about it as well. I think that's what came across to me very well. He's a very knowledgeable guy, and I think that's really important for the development of the club and where we're heading, because he's got the experience, the likes of clubs like Aberdeen and Everton. He's got that experience, and that backed with everything else. I think he was the perfect man for the job, and he sort of illustrated that to me very well in the AGM with the stuff he came across. I'm sure we're going to discuss that.
So at the time of the Q&A in the AGM, Bruce was actually under a little bit of pressure, although we had actually finally won 2 games in a row after a real barren run. What did Keith have to say about Steve Bruce and his time at Villa so far and the future with Bruce?
Well, Keith basically said that they've got the full backing, that Bruce and his team's got the full backing of the chairman, of Keith himself, and that they believe Steve was the right man for the job. He said the main goal for Villa was obviously to get up. He said that's the main goal for the club, to get up out of the Championship, and he stressed that quite a lot. I've got a few notes away what he said about Steve on the night, and he said that basically the main thing was the fact that he believes the skill set in place at Villa at the moment to get us up. And he said, I'll quote him here by saying, it'll come. He reckons that it won't be long before we are where we should be. And obviously, in hindsight, a few weeks later, we're on a really good run of form. And he basically believes that Steve's got it all, and he said that the team are training with a great intensity at the moment. They've got the skill set to push forwards, whether that be next season or, well, obviously the rest of this season. Who knows what can happen in terms of where we'll finish, but he obviously stressed the point that next season is the one, that the main goal is getting up, and that there's no excuses for that he believes that Steve is the right man for that, and the team in place around him is correct for that. And he said we've recently got Tom Bates, who's a renowned psychologist in sport, as our performance psychologist, so hopefully that can help matters as well. Keith actually stressed a lot about this idea of it'll come, and he referenced Henry Lansbury, who 2 days previously had run 13.5 kilometres versus Bristol City. Obviously it's all well and good running, but it's all about the translation into a performance, and to me, if there's the effort there, then the performance comes with it eventually, and that's what he stressed a lot. They said that the intensity is there, so the actual performance will come as well.
Talking to Lansbury, was he pleased with the January business? Did he mention that? Did he say that maybe perhaps they did too much, maybe?
No, he didn't really touch on that too much from what I can actually remember, to be honest, but I think he's relatively happy from what I could tell when he was talking about the likes of Henry Lansbury and the way that players are settling in. He did touch about the facts about having player liaison officers for players that are new to the area and so on and so forth. And he said that players are starting to settle down now, and players have started to move down from respective places such as Conor Hourihane. Obviously, Henry Lansbury's only coming from Nottingham way anyway, so it's not too far for him. But he said it takes a bit of time for those to bed in, but he said there's people in place. Apparently there's 2 officers that are there now that come in and help these players in terms of organising their move, helping them settle in if there's a language barrier, for example. So it's all in place there. The support's in place for the players as well.
Did he touch on transfer plans for the summer at all?
Well, he touched more on terms of players that we've got that are out on loan. For example, he said that Steve Bruce is really impressed with Jordan Veretout. He went to watch him when he played for Saint Etienne versus Manchester United, obviously midweek a few weeks ago. And then he said that he's heard good reviews about Carlos Hill, and he said that they're all being constantly monitored. And he said that the situation with those players will be reassessed in the summer because we don't know what they want or what the situation will be as a whole. But he said that all these players are being monitored constantly, so it's not like they're totally forgotten.
So obviously you touched on the need or the aim to go up next season. Did he touch on financial fair play at all? Because I know a few fans were a bit worried about that if we don't go up next season, or even actually this season, that people should be worried about money.
Financial fair play is an interesting issue. I think it's something that's on the lips of every fan. He said quite clearly that this season we're totally fine, and next season the way it's going will be totally fine as well. So I don't think there should be any issue there with financial fair play. I think the issues will start to come. I think this is a personal opinion now, but I think the issues will come if we don't get the following season. But at the moment, he said we're perfectly fine and we're well under the belt for that.
That's very good news, good to hear. So obviously season tickets for next season are now up for renewal. It just reminded me that I need to do mine. Did he touch on the fans next season and any plans for the fans to get excited about?
He talks about this quite a lot actually, and I was a little bit excited by this, I must admit, because of my age bracket, but he said the main thing is he wants to make Villa relevant again. We'll come on to marketing very shortly, but he said he wants to make Villa more relevant again to young people, because obviously the likes of Manchester City are the teams that are picking up fans from Birmingham, for example, which shouldn't be the case. We're losing out, and he used the term take back the city. We'll come on to marketing a bit later, but in terms of ticketing, he said there's the main focus on getting those young fans through the gates. For an under 21 next season, it's averaged at £6 a game. Under 16's averaged at £3 a game potentially, which is an amazing deal for fans. And he said so far we've sold over 1k season tickets, which isn't bad going. And he said of those, the main factor for me, this is an important one, 21% of those were new fans. It shows the engagement's increasing, which I think is really important. And as for the wider fan base, we obviously know that Villa Cash has been stopped this season. He said there are plans in place for a new system that will be announced very soon. That will be a loyalty programme that rewards fans much more. I don't know what example this could be, but for me this stands out to be, it could be like a free pie every few games or something. Stuff like that, just simple stuff for supporters that are season ticket holders that they might enjoy. Something a bit more beneficial than Villa Cash, because not everybody uses Villa Cash. And I think this is a wider system he's trying to push out. It's a new loyalty programme. And to me, it sounds quite exciting from what he did say. But as I say, he didn't really specify too much about what it would be. But he did promise that there'd be quite a big draw for fans.
So you just touched on taking back the city, but to me, the city is obviously Villa's and always will be. What did he mean by that?
Well, we all know that the city centre store was closed a few months ago now, 2 months ago, I think it was. That was all down to costs. That store was making a hell of a lot of losses. And for the rents that they were paying, apparently it was above what they should have been paying as well for New Street as well. So they felt it was best to get out of there in terms of it wasn't good for marketing. And we've seen recently they did Aston Villa colours over the Birmingham Library, which is a really clever marketing tool because people take a photo of that, share it on social media, and it goes viral, that sort of thing. And that's what he wanted to refer to, is more clever systems to market the club, promote the club in the city. And he said he wants to take back the city in more than one way. One way being marketing, in terms of showing that Villa is the big team in the city and proving that in terms of everything about it, encouraging more supporters. Then he said take back the city in terms of scouting, in terms of finding the youth players that are going to be the next big thing, finding them out and getting them to be part of Aston Villa Football Club in the academy, because our academy system's that good. They need to be finding the best, the cream of the crop from the city, and that's something that I haven't simply been doing recently. But I think it really stood out to me, the idea of bringing back the city and taking it back in more than one way, because it needs to be the case, whether that be marketing, whether that be behind the scenes, whether that be with training, academy, it all links together. And if you've got a good marketing, the chances are you've got a good academy as well, because it all goes hand in hand. Off
camera, you seem quite excited about the museum idea. Can you just talk to the subscribers about that a little bit?
Yeah, museum idea, you might be thinking, oh, that's a hell of a boring idea, but genuinely, this is a really exciting concept. It's the idea of a digital museum. What was described to Keith is basically he doesn't want the boring museum you might stereotype, for example, that you wander around and there's boring artefacts everywhere. He wants to make it more interactive. Like clubs like Everton have done it really well, where they've got what they call an on-the-road museum that's digitalised. So they'll go to local schools and you teach them about the history through that, and that obviously encourages them to perhaps support the club and so on and so forth. And it also gets it out there, because if it's sat in a museum, it limits it to who can get to see it. So if you're taking it to people, it encourages more people to go and see it, for example. And second to that, it was the suggestion of putting something in the North Stand. Again, Keith said that that's not going to be the case because of the North Stand redevelopment and all that, and where that's at. And the other point was with the digital museum is that on a game day, it would be tailored to the team we're playing against. So, for example, we were playing, I don't know, Sheffield Wednesday, for example. The museum would try and showcase memorabilia we've got from times we played Sheffield Wednesday in the past, for example, and history to do with the two sides, which makes it a bit more interesting, and it makes you want to go more than once, because with museums normally it's the case you've been once, why do you want to go around again? But if it's different every time, then you'd go back multiple times, for example.
Yep, sounds fresh. It's nice to see us coming up with potentially something different away from the norm. So pre-season, that was another thing that came up looking through the notes. What are our plans for pre-season?
There's going to be a tour. It's going to be in Europe. Don't know any more than that. That'll be announced very shortly. But The main pointer for me that is out there now, obviously, is the Graham Taylor match. There's going to be a match to hopefully just remember Graham Taylor against Watford, obviously one of the main sides that he was with throughout his time in football, and obviously Villa as well. So there's going to be a friendly between those two sides. They're arranging that in more detail, but as we know, that's been talked about more in detail since. But that was the main takeaway when it comes to pre-season, is that idea, because I think it's a really touching one and a really thoughtful one, and it's quite a good one, generally speaking.
So I'm going to become very business-like now and ask you, was there any other business discussed that I should be aware of?
Yeah, safe standing was the only other one I think I can come to memory of, and that Keith basically said he's fully behind the idea, but this is a case of, it's a government issue. It's the law at the moment. It's against the law, and it's got to go through all that rigmarole. At the club level, they're supporting it, and they've been to Celtic, as we've seen quite recently, to look at safe standing, and that's as far as it can go at the moment. They're limited just because of the way it is in terms of the government stance on it, stance at the moment. But I'd imagine that could all well change in the future. But as far as I'm aware, Keith's behind the idea.
So that's it for today's video. Thanks to Matt for relaying his thoughts for people who weren't there, and thanks for the Villa Trust for inviting us along. It was a real pleasure for us to film the event and speak to fans afterwards. Remember, please politely press the like button below if you enjoyed this video. Comment below of anything you'd like to say about Keith Wyness. What kind of job do you think he's doing so far? What do you think he should be looking at to implement at Villa in the summer? Remember to check out our latest blogs and videos on our new The Villa View website. Thank you very much for watching Up the Villa. If you enjoyed that video, why not watch another? Click the video choices on screen now to go and watch them in full. Be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking our logo there on the left. Easy peasy.